The sun had barely risen over Bamberg on May 1, 1573, when a young man named Frantz Schmidt stepped onto the city square. At 19, he carried a weight far heavier than his years. He was not just a witness to history, but its instrument. Before him knelt a trembling thief, bound and awaiting the inevitable. With the first lift of his sword, Franz felt the gravity of his lineage, the unyielding law of the Holy Roman Empire, and centuries of social stigma press upon his shoulders. One stroke would mark the beginning of a career that would claim 394 lives, yet it was never born of malice. It was inheritance and duty. Franz was not born an executioner. That fate fell upon him as a legacy. His father, Heinrich Schmidt, had once been a simple woodsman, living quietly in the shadowed forests of Franconia. But when the Margrave of Brandenburg, Ansbach, demanded his service, refusal was impossible. From that moment, the Schmidt name became synonymous with social exile. Executioners were necessary instruments of law, yet untouchable, tolerated by rulers, but shunned by neighbors. Their children faced barred doors in guilds, churches, and respectable trades. For Franz, escape was not an option. He chose instead to master the legacy thrust upon him. In the town of Hof, he trained under his father's watchful eye, learning every grim skill the profession demanded. The silent precision of strangulation, the merciless swing of the sword, and the public rituals designed to shame. Yet it was in Bamberg, a city ascending as an administrative and judicial hub, that Franz would claim his first public execution. That day, immortalized in his meticulous diary, he wrote, May 1, 1573. I wielded the sword for the first time in Bamberg. This entry was more than a simple record of duty. It was the moment a youth inherited the weight of an empire's justice. Franz's act was neither rogue nor cruel. The city council of Bamberg, like many across the empire, contracted executioners as formal civil servants. Ledgers recorded payments for sentences carried out, their bureaucratic neutrality masking the human drama unfolding before the crowd. The executioner, Frantz Schmidt, is paid for the sentence carried out. One note reads, behind the line of ink was a young man, hated yet necessary, executing justice in the public eye. But Franz's gaze extended beyond the scaffold. He sought something nearly no executioner dared: legitimacy. And perhaps even honor. Over the next 4 decades, Franz would become one of the most sought after executioners in the empire. He transformed the hated profession into an institution of precision and ritual. Public executions under his hand were not mere spectacles. They were choreographed statements of law, tradition, and societal order. In Nuremberg, crowds pressed around the scaffold, children perched on barrels, merchants clutching their aprons, all witnesses to the executioner's ritual. Franz, calm and immovable in his dark official garb, delivered a flawless stroke, each death recorded with clinical care. From 1573 to 1617, Frantz Schmidt executed 394 people across the Holy Roman Empire. But his career was more than a tally of lives taken. Each act was a meticulous blend of imperial law, local custom, and symbolism. For city councils, he was not terror incarnate. He was a civil servant, a living instrument of justice. Sword beheadings, reserved for male criminals of higher social standing, demanded perfection. A single misstep meant agony and humiliation, but Franz never failed. For others, punishments like the breaking wheel delivered prolonged torment, shattering bones one by one. A method designed to degrade as much as it killed. Franz's records are brief, precise, yet the horror of the acts is unmistakable. A chilling reminder that in the Holy Roman Empire, justice and brutality walked hand in hand.
The harshest punishments were reserved for the empire's most feared offenders: murderers, traitors, and blasphemers. The law was rigid, and so were the methods. Frantz Schmidt's meticulous diaries record the execution of a woman convicted of infanticide. She was sewn into a sack and cast into the river, a practice known as sack. Occasionally a dog or rooster would be enclosed with her, amplifying the ancient Germanic symbolism, society purging itself of a crime too dark to tolerate. Though not always public, these executions were never hidden from officials, and sometimes the townspeople watched silent witnesses to the ritual cleansing of moral corruption. For crimes deemed spiritually corrosive, heresy, sorcery, poisoning fire was the instrument of justice. Burnings were slow, deliberate, and devastating. Crowds often gathered around the stake in hushed awe, understanding that the spectacle was not cruelty for cruelty's sake. Schmidt's role was order, not sadism. His precision was a reflection of the state itself, unwavering, methodical, absolute. In a society where law demanded ceremony, the executioner was not marginalized. He stood at the very center of justice. Each shattered limb on the wheel sent a message of deterrence. Each flawless sword stroke reassured the public that justice was exacted correctly, publicly, and without hesitation. From the ritualized agony of the condemned to the ceremonial dignity of the beheaded, Frantz Schmidt embodied the paradox of medieval law. Brutality and order intertwined, terror and honor inseparable. Yet the story of Frantz Schmidt did not end in death, destruction, or fear. His legacy, immortalized in stone at St. Rahu's Cemetery, is unusual, even astonishing. There is no symbol of disgrace, no whisper of shame. Instead, the grave honors a man once feared, now remembered with respect. For nearly 50 years, he had presided over life and death in full view of society. But in the twilight of his life, Schmidt began to wield his knowledge for preservation rather than destruction. In 1617, after executing his 394th condemned soul, Frantz laid down the sword. He did not retreat into obscurity. Drawing on decades of intimate knowledge of the human body, once acquired to serve death, he turned to healing. He treated wounds, set broken bones, and dispensed herbal remedies. Those who had once recoiled at the sight of him now came seeking his skill and guidance. In his diary, Schmidt noted with quiet humility, "I ceased serving at the block and began attending to the ill." His transformation did not go unnoticed. In 1624, Emperor Ferdinand II issued an extraordinary decree. For the first time, an executioner was declared honorable. The decree erased the stain of his profession, restoring him legally and socially to the status once denied to his family. The man who had executed the empire's justice with relentless precision was now honored by the empire itself. Frantz Schmidt died in 1634, not as an outcast, but as a respected citizen of Nuremberg. His grave stands as a testament to a paradox medieval society rarely allowed. A life defined by blood could also be a life remembered for honor. His story challenges us to reconsider justice, duty, and redemption. Can a life bound to violence ever be fully accepted by society? Can the hand that once struck fear now inspire hope? Comment below, what do you believe? Can a man who served the law with blood ever be restored in the eyes of the world? Frantz Schmidt's executions were reserved for the empire's most feared criminals, murderers, traitors, and blasphemers. Punishments were precise, often symbolic, and deeply gendered. One woman convicted of infanticide was sewn into a sack and drowned, sometimes with a dog or rooster enclosed, a grim Germanic ritual meant to cleanse society of an unbearable moral offense. Crimes like heresy or poisoning demanded fire, a slow, devastating spectacle where the crowd bore silent witness. Schmidt's hand never wavered. His role was not cruelty, but order. Each flawless stroke, each carefully executed punishment embodied the law itself, sending clear messages of deterrence and authority. Yet Schmidt's story does not end in blood. In 1617, after executing his 394th condemned soul, he laid down the sword and turned to healing. Using his knowledge of anatomy, once learned to end lives, he treated wounds, set bones, and dispensed herbal remedies. Those who had feared him now sought him in hope. In 1624, Emperor Ferdinand II declared him heir. His legal and social standing, Frantz Schmidt died in 1634, not as an outcast, but as a respected citizen. His life proves a chilling truth: even a hand stained with blood can leave a legacy of honor, challenging society to reconsider justice, redemption, and the power of transformation.